Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Tyra coming to you live for today's Grief Corner, coming to you guys from Southwest at 7901 South Kaminsky. This is Chicago, Illinois, 60652. You can reach us on our website. Our web address is Southwest Funeral and Cremation.com. Again, our website is Southwest Funeral and Cremation.com. So we are coming in today yet again. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. Today we are continuing at our Grief Corner. We do know our Grief Corner is our safe place. And we have been exploring in our Grief Corner the 5 stages of grief so that we could help anyone who is experiencing loss during this time in whatever realm it may regard. We're here to offer you some support. Support why? Because at a time when people are losing, whether it be through death, jobs, and other things, then because everyone is kind of feeling maybe the same type of sorrow, it's sometimes a hard time trying to find some place where you can go and get your feelings out. So as we're trying to identify then the things that we may be feeling during this time of loss, during this mourning period, then what we want to make sure that we're doing is by maybe basically understanding where my feelings fall in at as it regards the fact that I am in a grieved state. Then I can also kind of then start to know what I should do about them. So we started with the first stage of grief, which was denial, as a short recap. And I do want to say that every video that has been done for the Grief Corner is available on our timeline here on our Facebook page. So from last week, bargaining, the previous week, anger, the first week, denial, you can always go back and reference those videos and watch the full frame on that particular area. So with that being said, denial was the first stage of grief, one that we spoke of in the regard of understanding that that's when we are in shock. Why are we in shock? Because now we've been faced with a terrible loss and trying to process the information that's being passed down to us, which is that we just lost this loved one, or we just lost our job, or that our relationship is over, a relationship that we still are holding on to, a relationship that we want. To find out I'm losing it, the news of that can, in order to deal with my feelings, place me in shock so that my body can take its time and break down and handle the information in segments as so that I don't pass out. And I do mean pass out. You've seen it on movies. You've probably seen it in person. When someone gets news that is devastating, they pass out. So being in shock is just the body's natural response as a defense mechanism. We said that in that stage, your job is to begin to come to terms with your loss, whatever the loss may be. Make sure that whatever it is that you're doing it healthy. Okay, I'm here to help you guys because I want to make sure that as you all are grieving, suffering loss, as you may be in a mourning period, that I can give you some healthy ways to deal with the things that you're feeling based off what has been proven to work from therapist and psych area in regards to helping people. So that's where we're coming from. You got to come to terms with your loss, okay? Quiet time may be necessary, but whatever it is, if you're in denial, you have to come to terms with your loss. We talked about anger in the second week. We said that anger is a very fair emotion, and we said that anger is a very common emotion. And so when we talk about anger, we're looking at the fact that it's okay for me to be angry. However, I don't want to try to bury those feelings of anger. If I'm angry, I want to consider it, I want to express it, and I want to tell it. That's what we said about anger. We said that if I'm grieving and I've lost someone or something, that it's okay for me to be angry. But I want to make sure that I identify where my anger is coming from, whether it's the death, the loss, of the job or the relationship, like just attack it head on. If you're angry about it, say it and then express it, whether it be through exercise, whether it be through taking up a yoga class, meditating, reading, writing out an angry letter. Please, whatever you do, if you got to punch a wall, express it. But be careful about projecting your anger onto others. I did, when we talked that week, we did say that sometimes we project our anger onto others. And so we want to be careful as to understanding that while we're not ourselves, while we're grieving, we're still, for those who are using it, and that's why you need to identify it, who are using their anger as their excuse for lashing out at others. That's not fair. But if you're doing that, you also should apologize. People understand that you're grieving, but you should also apologize if you're being offensive and projecting out your anger. But it's okay to express it. It's a way to say everything. So not only when you're considering it, you're expressing it and getting it out, but don't let one of the ways that you get it out be on another person. Do it healthy and then tell it. So tell people that you're angry. Okay? We talked about bargaining. We said bargaining is a coping mechanism. We talked about, not a coping mechanism, I'm sorry, but where we grasp for hope. And we grasp for hope when we bargain because we want to change things. Whether it's changing the outcome or the time for the loss. But when we are bargaining, we're talking about the what ifs. When we're bargaining, we're talking about whether or not I could have done something that could have saved this person or saved this thing or even saved my own life. But now I have the terminal news. Now I have lost my loved one. We said in bargaining, you don't find a permanent solution by going back and forth with yourself. You will not find a permanent solution beating yourself up about what you could have done. So what do we do when we're bargaining? We're going to come to a point of accepting our loss. It's fine to go through the questions, but remember, you can't change what is inevitable. So we are going to accept the loss. We are going to express and consider and tell it when we're angry. When we're bargaining, we're going to release ourselves, and we are going from any guilt and shame. What you couldn't do, you didn't do. For those that are still here with you, please do what you can for them. And then for what you couldn't do or couldn't change and now can't do anything about, you have to release yourself from that. And when you release yourself from that, then you can go ahead and continue to move forward. So now we're talking about depression. Depression is the fourth stage of grief. Depression is a big one. Why is it a big one? Because even the World Health Organization, the same organization that declared this a pandemic, COVID a pandemic, is the same organization that says that depression is the number one disability. Now, this is the World Health Organization, so we're not just talking about here in America. We're talking World Health Organization, and that depression is the number one disability. So a lot of people are suffering from depression. When we talk about depression, depression spans so many different territories that with depression, what winds up happening is it could be postpartum depression. It could be because of a relationship. There, just different forms of depression. And so because doesn't necessarily have to do with the loss, because depression is a mood disorder. Depression could be genetic. Well, depression is genetic. So if you know that there is a depressive disorder in members of your family, then sometimes it may not be anything that you can do about the fact that you have a depressed syndrome or depressed mood or chronically in deep depression. Why? Because it's genetic as well. So sometimes it could be a life event. Sometimes it is genetic, but the one thing that we know is depression is common. Right now, as we are in this lockdown situation, people have lost jobs. We're still expecting a few 100,000, something to the tune of 500,000 is what I looked at yesterday, of people who are still anticipated to lose their job. If you went to school for, whatever you went to school for, and now you find that you can, you're not employable be based off of what has happened. Now you have to restructure your whole life. Even just something like that is enough for people to feel depressed. Women suffer depression more than men do, but men and women alike all suffer depression. Now, because we know what depression is, then what I want you guys to know is that it's an ongoing problem. It's not a passing one. So the thing about depression, it is a mood disorder. It can be genetic. It can be spanned from a multitude of very different things. And so it's not a passing one. It is an ongoing problem if you're suffering from depression. How do you know if you're depressed opposed to maybe just grieved? How do you know if you are a manic depressive? Or how do you know you have a depressive disorder? Or that you're just sad? Well, that's something that's very important to identify. You might just be sad. It might be that the situation as it is has caused you to be sad. That's also to say that everyone that actually has lost someone in death, it's not to say that everyone that's grieving has depression either. So I can be grieving and not suffer from depression, and I can be sad and it also not be depression. So what are you saying, Tyra? What I'm saying is that when we're talking about how do I know if I'm depressed, or how do I know if I know I'm depressed, how do I know if I need to do something about it? We're talking depression is opposed to just being a mood. We all at some point have been depressed. I think probably this year I've said maybe at least once, I feel depressed. And it's just a mood. It's what's going on at that moment. That's the way it made me feel. And sometimes you guys the same way. You have a mood. Something happens. It makes you feel sad. And you might just say, hey, I'm depressed. There are plenty of people who have sad moments or moments where we feel like, you know what, I'm depressed. That's okay. But when you are in a mood where you don't ever come out of the sadness, where you don't ever come out of the darkness, when you cannot see the hope, when there's no reason, you can't find a reason to smile, there is no reason as far as you're concerned to smile, and this goes on for weeks, months, years, days, weeks, months, years, constantly in and out, just sad. You got to talk to somebody. So what I want to say about depression, my main thing, not only to tell you guys, not just that it's common for the World Health Organization, because this is a #1 disability for us, that because it spans across the board for so many people, what should we do about it? Okay, so we know about depression, but what should we do about it? You have to talk to someone. There's no way around it. Because if you do not, what winds up happening is then you handle it the wrong way. I want you guys, and I've talked to you guys about handling your grief productively, right? Handling your grief healthy, not doing anything that's going to cause harm to yourself. So some people, because they don't deal head on with their depression, or they may know that they're depressed, but they don't talk to someone, self-medicate. And so this is my main point on today. If you're medicating, self-medicating, that we want to help you to bring that to your attention and say to you that, hey, it's okay to have a glass of wine. If you smoke cigarettes, things like that, we know these things are not healthy for us, but we cannot use them as a crutch. And even if you do use them as, the way to make you feel better that day, because this is a mood disorder, and we know alcohol, drugs, and those things help change your mood. But if you are dealing with mood disorder, then we're talking about you still got to get it out, because you're taking the things that you feel are helping you when in fact they can be tearing you down. A lot of people suffer from addiction because instead of talking to someone, now they are self medicating. And that's also to say that even if you go see a psychotherapist, and you do actually get the medication legally, there is still a problem with addiction. So they recommend that if you are suffering from depression and you are taking medication, they still want you to do counseling. Because whether you are self medicating, which is not healthy and can develop addictive disorders, or whether you're under the doctor's care and the doctor is prescribing you the medication, you have to talk to someone, because what the medication or the substances will do is help you to feel better in that moment, but the pain is still there. The issue that causes the hurt, the issue that causes the addictions and the behaviors are things that we have to talk about. So while it may help us in a temporary moment, we have to talk about it. Okay? So I'm just urging you today not so much to define out what depression is, because it's such a common thing that most people know what depression is. But it's identifying that I'm in a depressive state. It's not, okay, today I'm sad, we got to get her some help. It's about the fact that you're always sad. We're talking about when, again, you just can't find hope. You got to talk to someone. And it doesn't matter if you use a psychotherapist and you do drug therapy that way, or if you are self-medicating. Talk to your mother, talk to your sister, talk to your brother, talk to your friends, talk to your pastor, talk to someone who you trust. And if you don't feel comfortable, that's why we have the grief resources and the grief corner. On our website, we offer several resources. They are local, so that you can, if you need to, you can actually go ahead and go into the office, opposed to, just doing virtual or over the phone. But I want to urge you today, everybody that knows that they are in a depressive state, not I'm sad today, but a depressive state. During this COVID season, there's been an increase in not substance abuse, but domestic violence. And in this COVID lockdown, quarantine, there's also been an increase in child abuse. Why? Because people are at home and they are depressed. And sometimes depressed and angry. Let me put them together. They're depressed and they're angry. And that's why when I talk to you guys about the fact that we do project, or we want to be careful that if we are projecting these feelings onto the others that are close to us, onto the others that are around us, we don't want to harm other people because of the way that we feel. So you got to talk to somebody. Dr. Travis says, reach out to someone that you trust. Okay? And that's what I'm saying. Get it out. We talked about anger. We said you have to express it, because you can't bury or swallow feelings, emotions that will eat you alive. You have to get it out. Talk about what's making you sad. Okay? Because again, we want you to grieve in a healthy fashion. Grieving is normal. Okay? But we want you to grieve healthy. All right. So that being said, I'm not going to hold you today. I thank you for sharing this brief time with me on today. I do pray all are well. Again, you can go back through the timeline here and look at our the other grief corners that we've done, covering bargaining, anger, and denial. Today, for resources, I want to just lead you to our website. Talking about children and child abuse, also talking about children and grief. Okay, so I have added some additional grief resources for children to our website. So if you have a child who's lost a parent, if you have a child who is grieving and they're ready to talk, because you need to let them do it on their own time. But if that child is ready to talk, I'm adding some additional. I did add one, but I have a couple more to put up for you guys for children that are grieving. I had a young lady to call last week. If you're watching, I could not find your number to call you back to give you this information. The person that referred her to me, if you're watching, please tell her to go to the website. I have uploaded and will continue uploading the resources that I have now for people who have children and teenagers who are suffering from grief, to be able to put them with not only counselors that deal with children, but also for children who want to be in a teen group or a group with their peers. Okay, so we're uploading that. And also, if one of the things that you're needing is insurance, because people do need life insurance, if you're needing life insurance, you can also reach out to us and we can examine those things for you, so that we don't leave our families grieved because there's no money to pay for services. Okay, we want to take care of our families, and so let's make sure we examine insurance needs for those that may have it. Next week, we're going to close out the 5 stages of grief. Next week, we are going to be closing out with acceptance. Acceptance is the very last stage of the 5 stages of grief, based off of this Kubler-Ross component of the 5 stages of grief. Please do remember that when we're looking at the 5 stages of grief, we're looking at it from 2 sides. We're looking at it from the side of the person who is dying and has terminal news, and we're also looking at it from the perspective of those who have lost a loved one. Okay, so the 5 stages of grief. Next week, we're going to end it out with acceptance, and then we will have our next grief support group via Zoom on June 11th. Our website is www.southwestfunerallandcremation.com. Our website is www.southwestfunerallandcremation.com. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Please continue to be well. God bless you.